Three children lay dying in a small hut in Nkwanta village, their life force draining away like water through cracked clay. Outside, their mother's anguished cries pierced the night. "My children! Something is eating my children alive." But what she didn't know was that her own daughter Efua stood in the shadows, tears streaming down her face, watching her brothers die, knowing she was the one killing them. Listen closely, for this is a tale of power and sacrifice, of a sister's love tested against the darkest magic. 3 months earlier, Nkwanta village had been struck by the worst drought anyone could remember. The crops withered in the fields, and the ground cracked like an old woman's hands. In Efua's home, suffering had taken root like a stubborn weed. "Efua, my daughter," Papa called weakly from his mat, his tuberculosis making each breath a battle. "Come closer." Efua knelt beside her father, her heart breaking at how thin he had become. His once strong hands now trembled as he reached for hers. "You must be strong," he whispered between coughs. "Your brothers, they need you." "Yes, Papa," Efua replied, but her voice caught in her throat as she watched blood stain his handkerchief. Her eyes got wet at the implication of what the disease was doing to his body. How could a just God allow such innocent suffering, she thought angrily. At school the next day, Efua's youngest brother Atto collapsed in the dusty schoolyard. His uniform, once crisp and neat, hung like old rags on his shrinking frame. "Ah, look at the poor boy," the other children whispered. "His family cannot even feed him." Embarrassment and anger shot through Efua's body. "If you can see he's suffering, can't you help him instead of gossiping?" "I'm fine, sister," Atto tried to smile as Efua helped him up, but his cracked lips told a different story. "Just a little tired, that's all." Efua helped him brush off his uniform and watched him walk away slowly. She looked up to the heavens with a defeated stare. Was there no sympathy for her and her family in this world? Later that evening, as Efua stirred their last cassava leaves into a watery soup, she heard her mother's prayers mixing with her sobs behind their hut. "Ancestors, why have you forsaken us?" Mama cried. "My husband coughs blood, my children starve, and I have nothing left to give them." Her mother's cries tore at Efua's heart. All the anger and hatred for their circumstances came rushing. What good were any of these so-called ancestors and ancient wisdom when they allowed such misfortune? Useless gods. The fact that even the prayers were directed to them made the hate take deeper root. It was Nana Oye, Efua's grandmother, who saw the dangerous glint in her granddaughter's eyes. The old woman had lived through too many seasons of hunger not to recognize the look of someone ready to make a devil's bargain. "Efua," Nana Oye called her over after their meager meal. "Come, sit with me." As Efua settled at her grandmother's feet, just as she had done since childhood, the old woman's fingers began their familiar dance through her hair. "My child," Nana Oye's voice was gentle but firm. "I see the shadow in your eyes. Remember what I always say. The spirits are watching, and some offer gifts that come with prices too heavy for any soul to bear. But hunger has a way of drowning out even the wisest warnings." The next day in the marketplace, Efua met Auntie Ajoa, the widow whose crops mysteriously thrived even in the worst drought. "Such a beautiful girl," Ajoa smiled, her teeth gleaming unnaturally white. "But your eyes carry such sadness. Come, tell Auntie what troubles you." Before Efua knew it, she was pouring out her heart to the older woman. With each word, Ajoa's smile grew wider. "There is a way, you know," Ajoa whispered, leaning close. "A way to ensure your family never hungers again. But the price..." She paused, her eyes glittering. The price must be paid in a blood oath, and you will have to renounce the ancestors. Ajoa's words were sweet poison dripping into Efua's desperate heart. She had no love for the villagers, who would rather speak ill than help her ailing family. She was done with all their ancestors and old ways. She was ready, and she followed. The old widow led her deep into the forest, where even moonlight feared to tread. There, beneath a twisted iroko tree, Ajoa's friendly mask began to slip. "Poor child," she crooned, but her smile had too many teeth now. "So willing to do anything for family, just like I was, so many years ago." Her eyes glowed with an unnatural light. "The power will save them, yes. But first, you must receive this." From her wrapper, Ajoa pulled out a clay pot no bigger than Efua's palm. Strange markings covered its surface, and it seemed to drink in what little light remained in the forest. "This is your Basie pot. It will hold the essence you collect," Ajoa explained, her voice thick with dark anticipation. "Every Obefo needs one. It is how we sustain ourselves." "Essence?" Efua's voice trembled. "What essence?" Ajoa's laugh was like bones rattling. "Life, child, sweet, precious life. The kind that keeps children's eyes bright and their blood warm." She stroked the pot lovingly. "You will learn to love the taste." The ritual began with Ajoa drawing symbols in the dirt, ancient things that hurt Efua's eyes to look at. The widow's movements were no longer those of an old woman, but fluid and predatory, like a snake about to strike. "Kneel," she commanded, and Efua obeyed. "Now, give the spirits a taste of what they crave." Ajoa handed Efua a rusty knife. Following the widow's instructions, Efua cut her palm, letting 7 drops of blood fall into the Basie pot. Each drop seemed to sing as it hit the clay, a high, horrible sound that made nearby birds take flight. "Drink," Ajoa whispered, holding out a gourd filled with something that smoked and bubbled. "Drink, and let the ancient ones take root." The liquid burned worse than fire, worse than any pain Efua had known. It was like swallowing lightning and darkness all at once. She could feel something moving inside her, spreading through her veins like ice-cold fingers, reaching for her heart. "Good," Ajoa purred as Efua writhed on the ground. "Let it in. Let it change you." Through the haze of pain, Efua saw Ajoa's true form, a creature of sickly green light, hovering over her with hungry eyes. The widow's words came as if from far away. "Welcome, sister." The transformation tore through Efua like a storm. She felt her spirit trying to rip free from her body, felt ancient knowledge pouring into her mind. How to hunt, how to feed, how to drain the precious life force from sleeping victims and store it in her Basie pot. When it was over, Efua rose from the ground changed. The forest looked different through her new eyes. She could sense the pulse of life in every living thing, could feel the power thrumming through her veins. The Basie pot felt warm against her skin, eager to be filled. "There," Ajoa said, satisfied. "Now, you will never be powerless again. Just remember, the hunger must be fed. The pot must be filled. And family." She smiled, that terrible smile again. "Your family's essence will taste the sweetest." Efua clutched her Basie pot, suddenly cold despite the night's warmth. "Family? No. No. I took this power to save them, not to..." "Ah, such innocence," Ajoa interrupted, with a laugh like breaking glass. "Do you think I chose my first husband by accident? The closer the blood, the stronger the power." "Your husband?" Horror crept into Efua's voice. "My dear late husband." Ajoa's eyes glowed with remembered pleasure. "His essence kept me young for 20 years. But children," she licked her lips, "children's essence can last twice as long, especially if they trust you, love you." "I won't," Efua protested. But even as she spoke, she felt a pull toward the village, toward her brother's warm, vibrant life force. "Listen well, child. This power comes with rules. First, you must feed at least once every 3 nights, or the hunger will drive you mad. Second, animal essence is like water. It will keep you alive, but never satisfied. Third," her voice dropped to a whisper, "the strongest power comes from those who love you most. Their essence fills the beze pot with pure light." "But," Efua started. "Feel it already, don't you?" Ajoa touched Efua's chest, right above her heart. "That pull toward home? Toward those young, strong brothers of yours? That's your new nature calling. Fight it if you want. But remember, the hunger always wins. And if I refuse to feed on family, then you'll grow weak, the power will fade, and everything you gained." Ajoa gestured at the darkness around them. "It all turns to dust. Is that what you want? To watch your family starve again?" Efua looked down at her beze pot, its markings seeming to writhe in the darkness. She could feel the empty vessel waiting to be filled, could sense the hollow ache in her spirit that only essence could satisfy. "I'll find another way," she whispered, but her voice lacked conviction. Ajoa's knowing laugh followed her all the way home, for the old widow remembered standing in the same forest, clutching her own beze pot, making the same empty promises. She remembered how quickly those promises crumbled when the hunger truly began. "Sweet child," Ajoa whispered to the night, "by next moon you'll understand. The closer the blood." She touched her own beze pot, still warm with recently consumed essence. "The sweeter the feast." At first, the changes around Efua seemed like miracles. Food appeared on their table. Their garden sprouted fresh crops. Her father's coughing eased. But then, strange things began happening in the village. Children fell ill without explanation. Livestock were found dead, their bodies drained of blood. Anyone who spent too much time with Efua grew weak and pale. Each morning, she woke with the taste of metal in her mouth and no memory of her dreams. "Something is wrong with that girl," the villagers whispered. "Have you seen how she glows at night? Have you seen how the children run from her shadow?" Nana Oye watched it all with growing dread. She saw how her granddaughter's movements had become too fluid, too predatory. She noticed how the children shrank away when Efua passed, though they couldn't say why. But it was Efua's brothers who suffered the most. First Yao, the eldest, began to weaken. Then Orse, the middle child, developed sores that wouldn't heal. Finally, little Ato started waking with nightmares. "Mama," he would scream, "something sits on my chest at night. Something drinks from me until I can't breathe." Each night, Efua felt her spirit leave her body, transforming into a ball of sickly green light. She would float above her sleeping brothers, drawing their life force into her mystical Baisea pot. The horror of what she was doing mixed with the dark ecstasy of feeding, until she couldn't tell where the hunger ended and her love began. That night, everything came to a head. As her brothers slept, Efua felt the now familiar sensation of her spirit leaving her body. She floated above them, a ball of sickly green light, drawing their essence into her mystical Baisea pot. But this time was different. This time, little Ato's eyes flew open, and he saw his beloved sister for what she truly was. "Sister?" he whispered, his voice already fading. "Why?" "We trusted you." Those words struck deeper than any knife. Through the haze of dark power, Efua remembered why she had made this bargain in the first place. Not for power, but for love. No, she screamed, fighting against the control of the evil that had possessed her. These are my brothers. This is my blood. Nana Oye burst into the hut, her arms full of protective herbs. The old woman's eyes blazed with ancestral power as she began to chant, "Blood of my blood, return to the light. Child of my child, win this fight. The love of family breaks all chains. Let light triumph where darkness reigns." The witch spirit fought back, its voice like honey mixed with poison. "Keep me, and you will never be powerless again. Cast me out, and you return to nothing." Efua looked at her brothers, Yao, who had carried her on his shoulders, Ose, who always saved the sweetest part of his fruit for her, and Ato, whose smile could light up the darkest day. "I choose them," Efua declared, her voice ringing with power of its own. "I choose love over darkness. I choose family over power. I choose to be human." The night air shattered with an otherworldly scream as the Obefo's power was torn from Efua. The Beise pot cracked, releasing all the stolen life force back to its rightful owners. Efua collapsed beside her brothers, once again fully human. In the days that followed, the rains finally returned to Nkwanta village. The crops grew strong and Papa's coughing eased, this time through natural healing rather than dark power. But the real miracle was in the lesson learned. Now, when the old ones of Nkwanta tell this story, they don't speak of the girl who became an Obefo. Instead, they tell of a sister's love that proved stronger than any witch's power. They remind the young ones that dark gifts always come with darker prices, but family bonds are worth more than all the magic in the world. For in choosing love over power, Efua found a different kind of strength, one that didn't need to feed on others to grow. And in the end, isn't that the greatest power of all? Remember this, dear listeners. In your darkest moments, when temptation whispers sweetest promises, remember that true strength lies not in what we take from others, but in what we're willing to give up for those we love. For even the hungriest spirit cannot devour a heart filled with love. If you like this story, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Share it with others who might learn from it and other folktales from African mythology. Thank you for watching.